Next, from the state capitol, we talk with a supporter of gay marriage in Illinois and hear why she says civil unions do not provide adequate protection for gay couples in Illinois. This runs about 5 minutes.
Camilla Taylor, the Marriage Project Director for Lambda Legal. Thanks for joining us on the Illinois Channel as we are here in the Capitol and legislation is being moved entitled the Marriage Equality Act. What is your position on the bill?
We support the freedom to marry for all Illinois couples, and this is a very important bill to give equality to every Illinoisan.
Now, one of the things that we have heard over the years, and I think a lot of citizens have bought in or supported, is the civil unions, so that there are legal protections for gay couples. But what is the difference between why a marriage act? Why isn't the civil unions enough?
Well, civil unions were an important step forward because they gave legal protections and rights and responsibilities to same-sex couples and to their children. But when government singles out some families and relegates them to a lesser status and labels them as inferior, which is what the civil union statute does, then that invites people to discriminate against these families, and it also causes confusion. So they experience discrimination in hospitals, and they experience discrimination by healthcare workers, by the administrators of their children's schools, and these kids even experience it on the playground. So it's time to end the labeling of some families as less worthy than other families. We all have a common birthright to liberty here, and that's what this bill is about.
What would you say to some who say the word marriage comes from religious traditions and that you're usurping that title if you have the protections of civil unions, that the word marriage, some would argue, should remain with whatever denomination or church?
Well, government is the body that issues marriage licenses. Government tells us that we can marry. This legislation is exclusively about how government treats its people. The legislation makes explicit that government can never tell a church whom to marry. Churches will always be free to make their own decisions about whether a couple is eligible to marry under the dictates of their faith tradition. This legislation is solely about government licenses and government treatment of all Illinoisans in an equal way.
Now, if this were to pass both bodies and signed into law, if a couple were married in Illinois, would it be recognized in other states, or how does that work?
Well, it would be recognized in neighboring Iowa, for example. Currently, couples in civil unions, it's uncertain how they would be treated in Iowa because Iowa doesn't have a civil union statute. But if they can marry, then they will be recognized in Iowa, and they will also be recognized in many other states where same-sex couples can marry, and also in states that will respect the marriages of all couples, regardless of whether they are same-sex or different sex.
Are there any new protections that would exist for gay couples that don't exist under civil unions?
Well, there is something very vital at stake in terms of tangible benefits, rights, and protections. There are well over 1,000 federal benefits, rights, and responsibilities. Currently, the U.S. Supreme Court is considering a law that refuses any federal respect to couples who are married, who are same-sex couples. Now, if the marriage bill passes here in Illinois, and if the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down the federal law denying respect to these families, then married same-sex couples here in Illinois would receive that panoply of federal benefits, rights, and responsibilities. Couples in civil unions wouldn't. So there are crucial benefits at stake, like Social Security, veterans benefits, those sorts of things that really matter to people that are at stake in this bill.
And those are not protected under a civil union?
No, the federal government doesn't have any sort of express recognition for civil unions.
Excuse me. Now, aside from the legal arguments, the protections, are there other arguments? Is there an emotional argument?
Yes, there's an argument about basic human dignity, which is really what's at stake, because these couples understand what it means when they're told that their families aren't as good as other families and they can't get married because there's something that's not as worthy about them. And not only do the couples understand that, but the kids do themselves. And you'll hear today at the hearing testimony from a family that wants to marry largely because of what it would mean for their children. Their children understand what it means that their family is singled out and treated differently and treated worse.
All right. Well, Camilla Taylor, we appreciate you joining us on the Illinois Channel.
Thanks very much.
You're watching the Illinois Channel. an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.